Hello everyone. The most important news in the past 24 to 36 hours is that ceasefire has been announced between Iran on the one side and US-Israel on the other hand. Okay? So US has proposed 15 points and Iran has proposed 10 points. But everyone is calling this ceasefire as fragile. Okay? Why? Because there are five most important contradictions between the demands of Iran on the one hand and the demands of US on the other hand. Okay? So I have listed out five of them. For UPSC aspirants, why this is important? Because this in a way summarizes the entire issue of the Middle East. Middle East, all the problems that were created by Iran. Okay? So in any kind of question, you can use either of these points to make your point. So the first question is nuclear and missile question. See, Iran has been developing, producing nuclear power plants, nuclear electricity, and it says that it has its inalienable right to produce electricity by the use of uranium. On the other hand, US has been demanding that there has to be complete denuclearization of Iran. They are insisting, in fact, Trump recently tweeted that there has to be complete denuclearization of Iran. Now, the issue is that, of course, many countries are producing electricity from nuclear power plants, but why only pointing out Iran? The issue is that it has been believed that, or the assessment is that, Iran has been producing weapon grade uranium. It means it is producing uranium to make nuclear weapons. See, when uranium is enriched up to the level of 4%, it can produce electricity, but when it is enriched up to the level of 60% or more than that, it can be used as nuclear weapon. Okay? So the main concern for the countries in the Gulf and Israel is that Iran is secretly producing nuclear weapon grade nuclear fissile materials. Okay? And since the Ayatollah regime that came in 1979, they are sworn enemy of Israel and they have committed to the complete destruction of Israel. Okay? Therefore, the main issue of nuclear weapons comes here. Right? The good news here is that both Iran and West has been negotiating nuclear agreement for the past over more than 1 decade. In fact, during Obama administration, what happened that they announced what is called as P5+1 agreement. P5 means 5 permanent members of the UNSC and Germany on the one side and Iran on the other hand. So then after the Trump administration came, Trump came out of this agreement and effectively this agreement is now null and void. So, and one thing more, that just before this war, both parties were negotiating on the nuclear program of Iran in Oman around 25 to 26 of February 2026. The main issue is the missile question. See, Iran says that Iran is not even ready to bring the missile technology question on the negotiating table. Why? Because they say that it is the conventional missile, the conventional ballistic missiles are their most important deterrent against their rivals in the region. Okay? And for Gulf countries, for Israel, this is the actual threat. And we have seen that in this war, the countries which are not party to this war, they were being attacked by Iran, the IRGC forces, without them being party to this conflict. So the issue is that it shows that, see, Iranian forces are not rational forces. Now, whenever a country possesses such a high level of technology that can cause destruction, massive level of destruction, like nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, it is expected that they will behave in a rational manner. But what's happening is that Israel US attacked on Iran, and now Iran is firing on almost all their neighbors, including Azerbaijan and Oman, to which they are friendly countries. Okay? So Gulf allies are saying that this is the most threatening aspect of Iranian military regime. So for Iran, it is out of question any kind of negotiation with respect to the nuclear, their ballistic missiles. For Gulf and Israel, it is the main issue that needs to be negotiated, right? Now coming to the second question, Strait of Hormuz. We know that Strait of Hormuz was completely open just before the war, okay? And due to the ongoing war, Iran has imposed limitations, or rather blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and it is only allowing the friendly countries' ships to pass through Strait of Hormuz. And it is also believed, though not completely confirmed, that these ships are paying 2 million as a type of toll fee to Iran. ठीक है? So what's the problem here? The problem here is that the Trump administration has been demanding complete, immediate, and safe opening of the strait. Means going back to the pre-war position. But Iran is saying that it can allow safe passage under the coordination of armed forces. What does it mean? See, Strait of Hormuz, if you can see here, Strait of Hormuz quite narrow. है ना? It is at its narrowest point, it is only 33 kilometer, quite narrow. But it is an international water. Anybody can sail through these waters. So it is Iran saying that it will allow safe passage under the coordination of Iranian armed forces means that international waters are being now controlled by a particular nation, or rather nationalization of this international waters, which no country will agree, because half of the world has a stake in the Persian Gulf, including India. Okay? So just after this ceasefire was announced, India said that it said that it needed unimpeded freedom of navigation. Means India will not accept any kind of obstruction through the Strait of Hormuz, of course after the war ends. Okay? Because while this war is on, there is a threat to any ship crossing that area. Okay? So one thing more, through this Strait of Hormuz, almost 20% of oil that world consumes passes through this strait. Therefore, you can see that the oil prices have hit more than $120 per barrel. Okay? Now, US is also considering, though it's not quite public, but it has been reported that Trump is mused to this idea of joint control of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran and US, and both applying the toll fee. Okay? Both making money. But the rest of the world is very critical of this, that they will not allow any kind of impediment in the movement of ships through this Strait of Hormuz. Coming to the third issue, lifting of sanctions. Again, this is very critical. See, Iran has been on sanctions for more than 4 decades. Huge burden of sanctions on Iran, particularly after this nuclear Trump administration came out of the famous P5+1 agreement. They reimposed the sanctions. So what's happening is that Iran cannot trade in oil. Oil has been sanctioned. So Iran cannot trade in oil. Moreover, its funds in European banks that were used for transactions has been frozen. So somewhere around $300 billion fund of Iran has been sanctioned and frozen in European American banks. Iran cannot trade in oil, and the main source of revenue for Iran is oil. Okay? Although China is the largest buyer of Iranian crude oil, but that's different geopolitics. We will not enter that area. Okay? So Iran is saying that it is first step in any kind of settlement, right? What US is saying, that US is leveraging this sanctions, that only after Iran complies with all the rules and regulations, only then the sanctions will be lifted. So this is the third contradiction between Iran and US. Now coming to the fourth one, it is about the Iranian proxies. See, what happens is that Iran has developed, trained, armed proxies around Iran. Let's say in Syria, in Lebanon, most important, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Hamas, in this Gaza Strip Hamas. Okay? So what happens is that Iran is their ideological mentor. Iran is their trainer. Armed training it has provided. Iran arms them, it provides military goods to this proxies, and the main purpose is to contain Israel, to make sure that Israel does not becomes kind of a regional power or gains regional influence. Okay? So the main issue is that keep Israel disturbing regularly, so that it is not able to grow out of its region. Okay? So what US has been demanding, US is saying that it is demanding that Tehran must cease all kind of support to this proxies. It controls them so that they cannot attack out of their border, like from Lebanon to Israel, and it must not provide any kind of military support. ठीक है? It means that basically what US is demanding is the complete dismantling of Iranian proxies, but Iran sees this relationship as deterrence against Israel. Moreover, this proxies help Iran gain regional influence on even Gulf countries. ठीक है? We have seen how Houthis have fired ballistic missiles on the Gulf countries' oil facilities, right? So, moreover, in this agreement also, Iran demanded that there should be no attack on Lebanon. Lebanon पे कौन रहता है? Hezbollah. So you must be knowing that in Lebanon it's Hezbollah, in Yemen it is Houthis, in Gaza they are the Hamas, then there are other allies as well in Syria and Iraq. Okay? So kind of Iran tries through this proxy tries to gain influence across the West Asia region. Okay? So Iran has included one point on Lebanon that it should not be attacked, but even after the ceasefire, Israel has attacked Lebanon or Hezbollah. Okay? Now coming to the most strategic aspect, the regional security architecture. We know that after 1991 Gulf War, US committed to provide security to the Gulf countries. Okay? Why? Because they are the main producer of oil, and oil is important for the world economy. Okay? World economy is dominated by US, therefore the US consumed most of the oil. But when the oil production, oil facilities are threatened, when it is not secure for the ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, then the entire world suffers, including US. हालांकि currently US is self-sufficient in crude oil production. It in fact produces surplus crude oil and exports to the rest of the world. Okay? So what happened is that after the Gulf War of 1990-91, US agreed to provide security to the Gulf countries. Now it has bases across the Gulf. अब देखो कतर में है, UAE में है, ओमान में है, सऊदी अरेबिया में है, कुवैत, इराक, जॉर्डन, सीरिया, हर जगह है. ठीक है? And in Saudi Arabia there are more than one basis. So the thing is that Iran is demanding, what Iran is saying is that by you completely go out of this region, there should not be any US military base in this region. Okay? But the thing is that once US gets out of this region, Iran is now free for complete domination of this region. And this is the most threatening aspect of outcome of this entire war, that if for some reason US decides to wind up itself out of the Gulf, then Iran may gain control. Okay? So they may choose to go out, but after complete annihilation of Iran. Okay? So fifth, this is the most important point. It is possible that a new regional security architecture they may arrive at a new regional security architecture wherein Iran pledges to support the regional status quo, maintain peace and decorum in the region, while the US and major powers agree to provide any security guarantee that if any party disturbs, they will come to the rescue of the aggrieved one. Okay? So let us see whether the deal maker, so-called dream maker, Mr. Trump, whether he is able to arrive at a deal where the ceasefire holds on, sustained, and eventually the peace is arrived in the region, and the world feels a much better place to live. Okay? Thank you very much.